It's not a guarantee we'll be able to see them, but we're hoping there's a chance. Now, the peak activity actually was reaching Earth earlier this morning. We knew there was a large episode of severe solar storm coming through, with these bright auroras being seen all the way down into the southern United States. We had folks taking pictures and sharing their stories with us this morning from last evening. So these are northern lights as pictured from our area here in Hampton Roads. Gorgeous, right? We may get a chance to see some more of that later this evening. Probably won't be quite as pronounced, but there's a good chance we will see something, and we're going to go for it this evening.
You know, I try to get my beauty rest, but every once in a while, resting makes you miss the beauty of the world. You like what I did with that?
Try to take some time. And this evening, if you're going to go out, and they could continue through the overnight as well. The problem is, Eugene, when we're up early in the morning, I don't know exactly what time you start your day, but I get up at 2:30 to come in here, to be in here by 3:30. In that time period, there may be a few more clouds off to the north. So I think our best chances of seeing it with the clear skies looking at this evening. Now, if we go to the satellite images, I'll just quickly show. It just knocked me off. Why did it do that? Let's see if I can pull that up real quick. The skies are mainly clear right now. So as we take a look, I think it is loading up. We are going to see mainly clear skies through the evening. Southwest wind's going to drive our temperatures up a little bit, but it should be really, really nice. As we get into the futurecast, you're going to see, again, those clouds off to the north around noon, sunshine through the afternoon, into the evening. How about that? 8 o'clock. Clear skies, good for the solar viewing, and it looks good. But overnight, you start to see some clouds creeping back in by 5:30, 6 o'clock. So if you're just hoping to get up tomorrow morning and catch them, maybe fighting a few clouds. All right, here's a 7-day forecast. We have temperatures today, instead of being in the mid-40s like yesterday, we're going to be close to 60 today.
I will take that.
Yeah, upper 50s to near 60 tomorrow, low 60s Friday and Saturday. Sunday, up to 69 degrees, so a little warmer there. Slight chance of a shower, mainly to the north, and then a weak front drops us back to 60 on Monday. Our next good chances for rain coming up next Tuesday, with some scattered showers possible.
It's almost like Mother Nature wants me outside this weekend, Craig. Every time I say that, I end up staying inside.
Right.
But it is nice to see things kind of ramping up, and even if it drops again a little bit the next week, I'm fine with that. Just give me Saturday and Sunday.
Well, our normal high right now today is 63 degrees. So we're below average for the next few days, close to average on Saturday. You get your bump on Sunday, close to 70. That's going to feel great. We can't really complain about temperatures near 60 this time of year.
We can't.
And the coldest months are coming, Eugene.
Listen, and you and I both know, with our Midwest kind of ties and history and background, I will take 60. I'll take 50 this time of year any day of the week compared to what we both came from years ago.
It gets very, very cold,
different.
and I'm proud of you, Eugene, because, coming up from, the old dirty South, talking hot Atlanta
You're right.
and Louisiana.
And then Illinois humbled me.
I was going to say, I think you're a little thin-skinned, but you come up here after doing some time in Illinois, you're like, bring it on.
So, bring it on.
Definitely it could, and inevitably, eventually, will get worse around here. So we'll take this.
All right, Craig. Well, we appreciate you so much, man. Thank you. And, hey, you can actually catch Craig and I both at the Botanical Gardens on Friday. Speaking of looking at this forecast now, with it being, a high of 61 on Friday, we're going to be at Norfolk Botanical Garden for our annual Daybreakers meetup that starts at 5 o'clock. If you haven't purchased a ticket, you can do that online. Just go to our website, 13newsnow.com. Wow. 13newsnow.com.
Skies, it's going to be clear.
And you can purchase tickets for that.
Perfect night for it. Temperatures will be in the 50s, so dress appropriately. Just after sunset, it's going to drop into the 50s here. If you're going to be out for a while in the evening, we may even find temperatures falling off low 50s or upper 40s.
Yeah.
So it will turn a little cooler. And then Saturday morning, real quick, Eugene, you've got another event down at the ocean
another
front.
event Saturday morning. That's for the American Heart Association. We have our Heart Walk that's going to take place for Virginia Beach Oceanfront. It's like the fourth year in a row that I have emceed this event. We kick off at 9 o'clock. The actual walk will start at 10. So if you want to come out, you can support all the efforts to stop, cardiac disease. And great people, great event. Every single year we have a really good time with that. It was cold, though, last year for both of the events we're talking about. So I'm looking forward to it not being as cold this year.
I will tell you, fighting heart disease, an effort that is very
Impacts us all.
near and dear to my heart. 3 grandparents, well, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, all heart attacks. So definitely runs in my family. I may try to get out there with you a little bit early on Saturday, Eugene. The weather, again, looks awesome, and, should be a great morning for that walk.
Come on out. Worst case scenario, you'll get to say hi to me, and then you can take a walk on the beach, Craig. So
sounds like a plan, man. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Always, man. We appreciate you so much. Meteorologist Craig Moeller there breaking down the latest in our forecast. We do now, Naya, let's transition to a live shot that is taking place. This is in Miami. This will be for that shot. Yeah, here we go. Right now, there is a procession taking place for a police officer in Miami Beach who died in the line of duty. You are seeing there, it looks like the hearse that is carrying the casket here of 33-year-old David Cahuso, who died on October 28th after losing control of his motorcycle. This took place on the interstate there in that area. Miami Beach police say that he was actually on his way to work at the time, and then his motorcycle went down an embankment, which later led to his death in a hospital. We have been monitoring this and had been recording it throughout this morning. Didn't know how long it's going to be, but they are still going, taking this long track here this morning, making sure that people have the opportunity to pay their respects along the route. Just a little bit about Cahuso as well that we're learning through this morning. He's survived by his wife and 3 young children, and a father who is a retired Miami Beach firefighter. So this was in the family. He is a second generation with that particular city in terms of public safety there in Miami Beach. He was known amongst his peers as the Golden Retriever because of his ability to lift spirits, always greeting people with a smile and cheerful words. It's a beautiful day. They say he was a man of faith, and his family and him were active members of a church there in Miami. And this actual funeral services will be taking place at Hard Rock Stadium. That is where they are currently traveling to at the moment. But we wanted to take a few moments to be able to give you an overhead sight of this procession. You can just see how many first responders, law enforcement are taking part of this particular funeral procession here for this 33-year-old officer out of Miami Beach. And, when we see things like this, typically you get law enforcement from all over the world, the country, who come in to make sure that they can be a part to honor one of their own. And it seems as though it is no different there in Miami. Traffic is being pushed to a stop as they all make their way for this journey, again, to the Hard Rock Stadium there in Florida this morning. And so I believe they started outside of Miami Beach City Hall and the Miami Beach Police Headquarters when they went off into this current funeral procession. And we'll see if they do carry also the actual service. I'm not quite sure yet from our media partners at ABC if that is something that will be offered, if maybe we can get a inside look and hear from some of the people who knew and loved this particular police officer, who can share comments. We do often, when we have the chance, be able to lean in on those remarks just so that we can see how people remember these individuals who have died in the line of duty, but also you can see there is somebody standing on the side of the road giving their respect. But to be able to get insight and a better picture of these people in which gave their lives to be able to serve their community and to honor them in that way. So wanted to take a moment for us to do that. We'll carry this for a few more moments here as you can see this funeral procession for 33-year-old David Cahuso out of Miami Beach, who died at the age of 33 on October 28th after losing control of his department-issued motorcycle. Okay, let's go ahead and transition here to a big story taking place today, and that is we could be coming close to the end of this government shutdown here on the 43rd day since the government funding ran out, which is the longest, of course, we've been saying in government history. Here in the United States, the previous record was 35 days. Overnight, while you were sleeping, a House Rules Committee took a very key vote to push along the bill that the Senate agreed upon just a few days ago to keep the government funded temporarily while they can work through a few of the other differences between the Democrats and the Republicans. And so today, we are expecting for the rest of the House to come together for a vote to end this shutdown, to fund the government. But not a part of that, though, is really what Democrats and others said was the key wedge in causing this in the first place, and that was a guarantee for an extension of healthcare premiums as part of the Affordable Care Act. That is not included within this particular bill, but a guarantee for a vote before the end of the year is what apparently is a part of this particular bill. So it's not guaranteed to take place in terms of the actual extension, which expires in December 31st, but they are saying they are guaranteeing a vote will take place. We'll see what happens. Again, the House is supposed to come back into session later today for a vote on this matter. And earlier, just really moments before we began our stream today, House Speaker Mike Johnson gave a very brief remarks to members of the press there in D.C. And so we caught it right after the beginning here, but we'll see what he had to say as they, again, are expected to call the House of Representatives back into session today.
They have a lot to answer for, and I just want to say that we're very optimistic about the vote tally tonight. We think this is going to happen, and we're sorry that it took this long. So Republicans are going to deliver for the people. We're ready to get back to our legislative agenda. We have a very aggressive calendar for the remainder of this year. There'll be some long days and nights here, some long working weeks, but we will get this thing back on track. So thank you all. Stay tuned for more tonight.
Speaker, do you have any reaction to the email from House Oversight involving the president?
So you heard there from House Speaker Mike Johnson there, not taking any questions after very brief remarks. I believe he had started just seconds prior to where we were able to press record there. Again, they are finally calling the House back into session after not being in session for weeks since this entire shutdown began, not since the end of September. But overnight, again, I told you about that House Rules Committee that met, and a part of that, House Minority Leader, Democrat Hakeem Jeffries, he spoke as well, so we have that queued up. Let's listen to what he said before the rest of that committee prior to their vote.
Well, I thank the distinguished gentleman from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and it's an incredible question. It was a stunning answer, given all of the problems that the American people are confronting right now throughout the country, beginning with the affordability crisis. The cost of living in America is far too high. The American people throughout the country just made that clear last Tuesday across the country that they want to see action. Yet, for 7+ weeks, House Republicans saw fit to be on a taxpayer-funded vacation, missing in action, part of the witness protection program, doing nothing to make life better for the American people. That's extraordinary. And you got to wonder whether this was an order that was given by Donald Trump, who apparently has said that he's got two jobs. He's both the president and the Speaker of the House. His words, not mine. And Donald Trump apparently doesn't believe that there's an affordability crisis. Said it himself. There is no affordability crisis in the United States of America. That's what Donald Trump, top Republican in this country, says. So I guess it's no small wonder that the Republican chairman of the Appropriations Committee would say that there's nothing to do. Because Republicans apparently don't think that there are problems in this country that should be dealt with, such that the House of Representatives should be in session. But as Democrats, our view is that we've got to lower the high cost of living. We've got to make life more affordable for everyday Americans who are suffering under crushing Republican policies. Costs haven't gone down. That was the day one promise. Costs have gone up. Inflation going in the wrong direction. Far too many people across this country working hard, playing by the rules, but cannot get ahead, are barely getting by, can't thrive, and can barely survive. This is in America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And Republicans have been out since September 19th. That's extraordinary. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Apparently, House Democrats are the only ones committed on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis to do the people's business. And our commitment remains to lower the high cost of living, to fix our broken healthcare system, starting by extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits to prevent tens of millions of people from experiencing unaffordable healthcare premiums skyrocketing through the roof that will either lead to medical bankruptcy or prevent them from being able to go see a doctor when they need one.
If I could go back to the issue of healthcare, just for the record, I mean, has Speaker Johnson promised a vote to extend the ACA tax credits to either of you?
It's extraordinary that he hasn't indicated that there will be a vote one way or the other to address the Republican health care crisis. Now, our colleague from the great state of Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, found it laughable that there's a Republican health care plan. She said she couldn't find it. She can't find it because it doesn't exist. Now, we know what the plan has been in the past. In terms of the Affordable Care Act, Republicans have tried to repeal it more than 70 times over the last 15 years. And so we are just trying to get our Republican colleagues to take yes for an answer. We've said repeatedly, let's find a bipartisan path forward. Let's reopen the government. Let's make life better for the American people. But let's address the health care crisis that our Republican colleagues have created, and we can start by extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits.
Has he talked to any of you about a pathway forward? I mean, has he engaged either of you in our leadership about how we might resolve this health care crisis?
Absolutely not. And it is astounding when we have 60% of American families telling us they have a hard time affording the basics for their families. This is about lowering people's costs, whether that's housing, groceries, utility bills, and affording health care. This should be something that Republicans should have come and negotiated with us, but they wouldn't do that. They showed so little regard for the American people. Not only did they make this extreme bargain where they took away their health care, Medicare, Medicaid, the ACA tax subsidies, medical research, all to pay for permanent tax cuts for the very wealthiest Americans. They couldn't even, while they were home, not doing their jobs, swear in a duly elected member of Congress because they would rather not do that than actually have to talk about the fact that they are shielding those in the Epstein files. The outrages and the disdain and arrogance that they look at the American people with is truly hard to take in.
I mean, I took the train down here today, and I got an earful from a lot of people on the train. And they're quite frankly puzzled at, like, the priorities of Washington right now. They don't understand, why billionaires and millionaires get tax cuts and the ACA tax credits can't be extended so that working families can afford their health care. They don't understand Donald Trump's obsession with redoing his bathroom in marble and gold and, building a Marie Antoinette, ballroom and demolishing the East Wing while they're struggling to afford groceries. I mean, well, bottom line is the president won't even acknowledge that food prices are going up. When's the last time he's ever been in a grocery store? He has no clue what he's talking about. You got to talk to real people. But there is a disconnect, and people are furious. And by the way, this is not about Democrat versus Republican or left versus right. This is now about top versus bottom. I mean, and people increasingly feel like they do not have a voice down here, that the leadership in this Congress and this White House, all they care about are people who are well off and well connected, who can write out big checks, and who can help enrich, the president and his family and those around him. And, that's corruption. That is corruption. I used to say during his first term that Donald Trump is the most corrupt U.S. president in recent history. This time around, I want to amend that statement to take out the word recent. This is unconscionable what's going on. And we ought to be able to come together and make sure people don't get screwed over on their health care. And I thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. McGovern. Mr. Roy, you're recognized.
Notice the ranking member says that, quote, we own this.
You do.
If we don't.
Okay, what you're listening to right now is the discussion that took place overnight. They met for about 7.5 hours. This is the House Rules Committee that eventually passed forward that bill to go before the House. Again, that vote we're expecting at some point later today. I do want to stick with this for a little while longer because I think it gives us insight into what went behind the vote and how the Republicans and Democrats, as of this morning, are feeling about this. So we're going to listen to this for a little while longer. Again, this happened overnight, but while you were likely sleeping, okay, well into this morning. So let's get back into it, listen to it for a little bit more, then we'll go to our next thing.
That's what for the American people to understand. Insurance companies.
Bail out Argentina.
Insurance companies. 1,032% stock prices up since 2010. 448% up from 2013. 85% of the revenues for insurers come from the federal government. What my Democratic colleagues are proposing is an insurance company enrichment scheme. It's literally what they're doing, is printing money in the Treasury and giving it to insurance companies. That's their solution for health care. Enriching insurance companies that are the very people that are telling the American people which care they can get and not get. There's no chance for an American to go to the doctor of his or her choice. There's no chance for them to go get care. There was no chance for my constituent who lives near Fredericksburg, Texas, to go to MD Anderson to get care because she's on Obamacare, which can't go to MD Anderson. And if the cancer that I had when I went to MD Anderson came back and I'm on Obamacare as a member of Congress, I couldn't go to MD Anderson because of the situation that my Democratic colleagues have put the American people in. Going around and preening that you're somehow caring for people more by giving them coverage for care that doesn't actually provide them care, while insurance companies get rich. $35 billion in subsidies in 2024 for people who didn't even use their plan. It's absolutely unconscionable. That is right. That is the correct word. It is unconscionable what we have done to the healthcare system, destroying it for the American people so that they can't get the care of their choice. That's what's happened. And now you hold the government hostage for 45 days and then try to come lecture Republicans about it when you've been holding the American people hostage to a broken healthcare system for 15 years. That's what's been going on. The fact is, Madam Chairman or Chairwoman, we are here today trying to proceed with, I think, reason, with 3 appropriations bills combined with a continuing resolution through January. After having tried with reason to fund the government through November 20th so that we can continue the debate on the various issues in question. But our Democrat colleagues refuse to do it. And so now we've got the opportunity in front of us to extend, fund government at current levels, roughly flat, trying to stave off the inflation that is the direct consequence of the massive amount of government funding that has been going on by both sides of the aisle, but heavily being promoted from my colleagues here on the other side of the aisle, who want us to throw another $1.5 trillion at it. That's literally what they were saying. It's not a solution. That's just printing more money while trying to go run campaign ads while you shut the government down for very clearly and obviously political purposes. I yield back, Madam Chairman.
Madam Chair, I wish the gentleman had that passion condemning the $40 billion bailout of Argentina, the right-wing cuckoo clock in Argentina. I wish he had the passion to condemn that.
Mr. McGovern and Ms. Scanlon, you're recognized.
Thank you. Leader Jeffries, we just heard a fairly passionate condemnation of the Affordable Care Act. You've been here a little longer than I have. Have our Republican colleagues ever been able to produce a plan that would provide the kind of coverage for Americans, affordable coverage, that the Affordable Care Act did?
You know, it's very interesting that my colleague from Texas wanted to sit there and lecture both Catherine Clark and I, but couldn't see fit to ask us a single question, engage in a debate. Where y'all been, bro? You've been out for 7 weeks. You don't have the time to have a back and forth? We hear you rant for a few minutes, basically threaten to repeal the Affordable Care Act and then don't want to defend that position? You should feel free to defend that position. You've done it 70 times. And if you think that's on the right side of the American people, then fine. That's your plan. Repeal and displace tens of millions of people. That's the Republican plan. And what I don't understand is why my colleague cut and run. I'm sitting right here. Catherine Clark is right here. Hopefully, Madam Chair, we can have a back and forth as opposed to just being lectured to by our Republican colleagues. But I thank the distinguished gentlelady from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, who, by the way, another decisive win for the American people in Pennsylvania. Last Tuesday, it was extraordinary rebuke of the extremism that we've seen from our Republican colleagues and the absence of any plan to make life better for everyday Americans.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your prior remarks regarding what we could have been doing in the House over the last few months. I mean, the Senate's taken some votes on tariffs. Maybe we could have done something with respect to tariffs here. Except I think we have a rule that would prevent us from doing votes on tariffs.
Yeah, I thank the gentlelady for raising the tariff issue because there's so many parts of the parade of horribles that Republicans have unleashed on everyday Americans that I neglected to actually mention the tariffs. The Trump tariffs are causing costs on everyday Americans to increase by thousands of dollars per year. This is an affirmative effort to make life more expensive for the American people. My colleague from Texas, before he cut and run, he also said that, you know, we have a fiscally irresponsible situation in this country and that because Democrats want to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for everyday Americans, working class Americans, and middle class Americans, somehow that's problematic. You know what's problematic? The fact that Republicans, with the one big ugly bill, enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, ripped health care away from millions of folks. In that same piece of legislation, cut $186 billion from SNAP, the largest cut to nutritional assistance in American history, literally stole food from the mouths of hungry children, seniors, and veterans, And all of that was done to enact massive permanent tax breaks for GOP billionaire donors. And in the process, as if that wasn't bad enough, skyrocketed the debt by trillions of dollars more per year, saddling our children and our grandchildren and making it more complicated for them to experience the American dream in their future. So we are not going to be lectured by anyone on the other side of the aisle about fiscal responsibility when the bill that you just passed jammed down the throats of the American people in a partisan way because Donald Trump ordered you to do it is the most fiscally irresponsible piece of legislation ever in this country's history.
Thank you. Whip Clerk, like you, when I've been in the district and not in DC at the hearings we've been having here, I've been meeting with constituents. Last week, I had an open house and a lunch for our federal workers. It was really interesting because I had 3 federal workers drive over an hour to my district from one of our Republican colleagues' districts because they'd been unable to have any kind of dialogue with him. I came into Congress during the first Trump shutdown. And what has been so remarkable this time around is hearing federal workers saying, yes, this is painful, but what is happening to our federal workforce, the cuts that are happening, the pain that is being inflicted on the workforce is so bad that we need you to hold out. We need you to make this situation better. So between that, between the veterans at the parade I went to this morning in my district, who said, keep fighting, this is not working for my family, and the families who are sending me the comparisons between last year and this year's health insurance, and they were paying $1,600 a month, and now they're going to be paying $600 more a month for a family of 4. I mean, the individual stories are just astonishing. I assume you're having a similar experience.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing the American people into this. I'm surprised to hear my colleague from Texas having a new interest in taking on insurance companies. Where have those discussions been? Where are the plans? Where's the answer to a witness who came and talked over the last 5 weeks to Mariah Plant from West Virginia, who told us about her brother who has special needs, who needs a lot of care, but who she is committed to keeping at home and being with people that he loves. Without Medicaid, she cannot care for him. He is a very medically complicated person, and she is so afraid of what is going to happen. And she, 29 years old, is also a small business owner while caring for her brother full-time. ACA is what gets her health insurance coverage. This plan, and let's not sell the Republicans short, they had a plan. Their plan was to come in, take $1 trillion out of Medicaid, trigger a $500 billion cut to Medicare, take away the ACA tax subsidies, and then cut medical research. So while we take it away from people in the immediate and now, we are also saying to the future, good luck. As one researcher who recently lost her lab due to federal funding cuts under the big ugly bill said to me, all the hopes of the patients I've been working with are now in a freezer. Now in a freezer. She said, I'll be okay. I'll be able to relocate, probably to Europe, to be able to continue her research. But that plan that they have is to take all of that funding and give it to the very wealthiest Americans in a permanent tax break. And they couldn't wait to get us back here. We had to come back on July 3rd to make sure that we did that in time. But we've sat here for 54 days without a single hearing, a single negotiation, a single offer, and the one most moderate of proposals to have a one-year extension and a bipartisan commission to look at ways we can work on this system and make healthcare work for people, rejected, out of hand, and no comment. And I just want to say that it's a little hard to be lectured to about the pain that is being inflicted on the American people when we have heard nothing from our Republican colleagues as this administration saw their shutdown as an opportunity to fire another additional 4,000 plus federal workers to the 200,000 they have already let go, to threaten furloughed federal workers they might not get their pay after the shutdown concludes. Where was the outrage? And going on and lecturing our air traffic controllers that somehow they're not patriotic enough to be working without pay. And then we just go through the parade of horribles on the split screen. People so concerned. Their spouse may not be able to have the cancer treatment continue they need. They may not be able to manage their diabetes, get that inhaler that their child needs, and the continuing medical care to survive. And nothing as the president takes down the East Wing to build a ballroom, hosts a great Gatsby party with a burlesque show thrown in, $40 billion to bail out Argentina. And then we get to SNAP, where this president and the loyalists in Congress sat on their hands and made up excuses. Well, they took food away from hungry kids, seniors, veterans, disabled people, and said, we legally can't give this out. They knew that was not true then, and they have taken it all the way to the Supreme Court in order not to feed hungry kids. It went from let them eat cake to let them eat nothing. How dare you lecture us when you are willing to let hunger in this country be a political weapon?
Thank you. I will yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Scanlon. Mr. Scott, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And would you agree with me that the gross premium is set by the insurance carrier and doesn't have anything to do with the subsidy?
Who are you asking that question to?
Either one of you.
Gross
Premium.
What I'll say is that tens of millions of Americans are at risk right now of their premiums, copays, and deductibles dramatically increasing because of the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. And these are people all across the country. In fact, in the 10 states that would be most impacted by the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, all 10 of them are run by Republicans.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
We're talking about West Virginia.
I'm going to reclaim my time. I wasn't trying to be smart with the question. I'm going to just read from KFF, which I think most of us who study healthcare use KFF. And by the way, I was an insurance broker for 20 years. I've got 4 professional designations in employee benefits. I don't have them anymore, but I had them when I was in business. And my degree is actually risk management and insurance. My father was a surgeon, so I actually saw all sides of it, and I live in rural America. And if you want to talk about rural health care, one of the key issues that we could fix is there are 425 hospitals in urban areas today that claim rural status. So when we put money out there for rural hospitals, the urban hospitals step in and they take that money. In 2017, there were 3. Today, there are 425. So there's a lot of gamesmanship in the system. But according to KFF, and we can get rid of PBMs, there are a lot of things. There's a lot of agreement on how to reduce the cost of health care that I'm baffled that 90% of the members of Congress would get rid of PBMs, and yet we can't get that passed and signed into law. But the gross premium, just for the American citizens watching, and I wasn't trying to ask a trick question, Mr. Jeffrey, the gross premium is going up 26%. That is what the insurance companies on average are raising their premiums from 2025 to 2026. Now, certainly if the subsidies go away, you're going to see a bigger share of the premium. But the American citizens that are covered under the Affordable Care Act aren't paying the gross premium. They're paying the gross premium minus the subsidy. So there's, I mean, if we're honest, the biggest part of the rate increase is coming from the insurance companies going up 26%. Their costs didn't go up 26%. I don't want to get into a debate. I wasn't trying to be smart. I'm just telling you, if you want solutions, there's solutions, but the solution comes in two areas. One, dropping the cost of health care in the country by getting the middlemen like PBMs out. Two is you got to put competition back into the insurance industry, which means you're going to have to allow some smaller companies in that aren't big enough to do business nationwide. And you're going to have to give the American consumer the option to change plans and not be stuck with the plan they buy January 1. The thing I've never understood about what y'all did when y'all wrote the Affordable Care Act is when you buy your contract January 1, if it doesn't work for you, you got to stick with it for another 12 months. I mean, you should have any system that's going to work will have more insurance carriers with more competition and portability for the consumer so that they can move from carrier to carrier. We did it with no loss, no gain in the mid-90s. No loss, no gain was the provisions that we put in so that we stopped the carriers from games they were playing, if you would, however you want to put it. We stopped the carriers from doing a lot of things they were doing with no loss, no gain. There are a lot of things that can be done to fix it, but what you can't do is pretend that the Affordable Care Act works. It just doesn't. It's going to have to be rewritten.
Well, Representative Scott,
when you get serious about rewriting this, Jeffries, I promise you, there's a lot of us that'll work with you.
Well, I appreciate your observations, and I will say, listen, we agree on this side of the aisle that we need PBM reform. In fact, there was an agreement to engage in aggressive PBM reform until Donald Trump and Elon Musk killed that agreement.
It was actually
in
Mr.
December.
Musk.
Well, you know,
It's not elected.
It was actually Musk that was posted.
Well, whoever it was, Republicans apparently decided to pull the plug on that PBM reform. So we agree.
But Mr. Jeffries, you're from New York, correct?
That's right.
So I'm from Georgia. So I trust the Georgia state legislature to determine what our no loss, no gain or pre-existing conditions clauses and portability options should be. And so that's one of the things as we go forward that we'll be pushing for is flexibility at the states. I'll yield. It's getting late, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Neguse, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Leader Jeffries and Whip Clark. And I think you've eloquently described the stakes for the American people with respect to the health care crisis that Republicans have created. I have a particular question about a different provision of the CR, but before I do, I don't know if you care to expound with respect to Representative Scott's questions or anything you'd like to add.
Yeah, no, I appreciate Representative Scott, raising the questions and giving us an opportunity to respond, unlike his prior colleague. And the thing that I would say is we agree there's a broken healthcare system in the United States of America, and we need to fix it. The problem that we confront right now is that tens of millions of Americans who are in open enrollment as we speak are going to see their health insurance premiums skyrocket to levels of unaffordability. That's the crisis that is immediately in front of us. These tax credits expire on December 31st of this year. And our Republican colleagues saw fit with great urgency to renew massive tax breaks for your billionaire donors on July 3rd of this year, while at the same time enacting the largest cut to Medicaid in American history and causing hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers, including in rural parts of Georgia and this country, to close. And that is why we believe this is a Republican health care crisis that needs to be decisively addressed with the fierce urgency of now.
And I couldn't agree more, Leader Jeffries. I want to talk about another provision that I described earlier as, I think, insidious. You and I, 4 years ago, Mr. McGovern, many of us were on the floor of the House on January 6th. There's a provision in this bill, this payday provision, for 8 Republican senators connected to January 6th, and I suspect you share the same outrage that I have about it. I wonder if you and Whip Clark might talk a bit about it.
Yeah, I'll yield to Whip Clark initially on it, and then we'll certainly have more to say.
This particular provision would be outrageous in the best of times. To say that we are going to use our appropriations process to put in specific personal payments to 8 specific senators in relation to an investigation, this is guaranteed money, as our colleague from Georgia pointed out. It is outrageous. And I heard our colleague, and I appreciated his comments and his candor about it. But what struck me was his reluctance to act in this moment. This is exactly the moment where we are not Democrats or Republicans, we're Americans who have identified something wrong, a payout in a bill when Americans are waving their hands and saying, we're not making it in this economy, we're not making it in this system. We have to hold ourselves accountable. And if we cannot reject and demand that that get out and proceed quickly with our work, then I would question what you think you're doing here. I don't think we have heard a single person try and muster any defense of this payout that was snuck into this bill. And the fact that at minimum we're going to pay U.S. sitting senators $8 million while we dismantle health care for people, while they can't afford to buy meat and coffee and groceries, they can't afford their electric bills. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? We have to be able to say no to this. This is blatant corruption and payouts that were snuck in, and we have to do this now. There's no excuse in the world for not acting.
Thank the distinguished gentleman for that question. It's extraordinary. And, you know, for the American people, it's important to understand. We're talking about a multi-million-dollar slush fund that is in this bill for 8 Republican senators who apparently believe they're part of the House of Lords, because that's something that would be done if you think you're a lord, not someone who is subject to the rule of law. That's extraordinary to me. And unfortunately, it appears that despite how outrageous this provision is, my Republican colleagues are prepared to vote for it here before the Rules Committee and tomorrow on the House floor, while at the same period of time can't find a dime to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans. It's shocking, and it speaks for itself. And the American people are going to reject. This is real-time corruption that's on full display. A multi-million-dollar slush fund for 8 Republican senators that every single House Republican is apparently prepared to sign off on. And if you vote for it, you own it.
Well said, Leader Jeffries. With that, I'll yield to the chairman.
Yeah,
Ranking member.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Scott cited KFF, and I just kind of did a little search here. He cited KFF as saying that there is a 26% increase in premiums. I just want to share what KFF said as to why rates are going up, and let me quote them. The amount insurers charge for ACA marketplace premiums is rising for several reasons, including but not limited to increasing hospital costs, the rising popularity of expensive GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic, and the threat of tariffs. These factors are similarly cited by insurers selling employer coverage. However, an additional factor driving up the amount insurers charge for ACA marketplace premiums is the expected expiration of the enhanced premium tax credit, end quote. I thank the gentleman.
I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back, and I now recognize myself for my time of questioning. I would refer everybody to my prior comments. We have to get the government back open. There are things that are not ideal in this bill. There are things that are highly suspect that were put in by the Senate. But if we try to fix it at this point in history, after 40-some days of a shutdown, we have no choice but to send it back to the Senate, and they will not be back until Monday. My people cannot suffer anymore. As I said before, my district has an average take-home pay of less than $51,000, and I'm 409th out of 435 in the nation. We don't need any more suffering. We can't take any more suffering. I have to vote to open the government back up, notwithstanding it's an imperfect process and notwithstanding there's things that I would like to vote to change. Because it has taken this long, we cannot wait any longer. And I yield back and now recognize Ms. Leisure-Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, Republicans keep saying, and placing, I think, what would be described as a false choice, which is what we just heard, that you cannot fund the government and extend the tax cuts. You cannot fund the government and remove that reprehensible provision, which I am calling a payola, and still move forward on funding the government. They have a choice. I have an amendment, and we will ask each of the Republicans on this committee, are you going to vote for millions and millions of dollars to go to those 8 senators and not a dime for enhanced tax credits for people's health insurance? And so I wanted to ask you, Hakeem, Leader Jeffries, also Hakeem, I wanted to ask you to...
I still go by Hakeem.
You still go by Hakeem. So is it possible, like they have the power to do this? Why is it that they think that they cannot act? Because this is something that is possible. So I'd love for you to talk about this choice that they keep providing us that says we can't do that, we can't do this, we can't do that. Why can't we vote to fund the government, vote to extend the tax credits, vote to remove that horrendous provision?
It is absolutely the case, and I thank the distinguished gentlelady from the great state of New Mexico for that question. It is absolutely the case that this corrupt provision can be removed and should be removed. It can be struck if the amendment is made in order here before the Rules Committee, the amendment that you are offering, the amendment that I know will be discussed and debated. No one can defend this provision. And in allowing it to happen, it's bad enough that Donald Trump publicly proclaimed that he's got 2 titles, that he's the president and the Speaker of the House. But now the Republican-controlled House of Representatives wants to act subservient to the United States Senate. When I read the Constitution, we're separate and co-equal parts of the legislative branch. It's in Article 1. In fact, the House of Representatives is the first amongst equals, first institution mentioned in Article 1. And by the way, we've got the power of the purse. The House, we were given that power by the framers of the Constitution. The Senate wasn't. The Senate was given the confirmation power. And it's bad enough that we've already given away our authority to the current occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, who brags about him being the Speaker of the House. But now we're letting 8 senators conducting themselves like they're the House of Lords airdrop at the 11th hour this corrupt provision, and now our Republican colleagues are claiming there's nothing we can do about it? I mean, that's extraordinary. We've said in the House, and I'm proud to be part of the People's House, that we don't like to be jammed by the Senate. On policy, And we should never be jammed by the Senate on policy. But now you're allowing the Senate to jam House Republicans to enrich themselves. I mean, that's unconscionable. That's unpatriotic. And that's un-American.
Thank you, Hakeem Jeffries. And, you know, earlier we also heard some of the representatives in this committee sort of attack the Affordable Care Act. They contested Rep. Clark's. You're pointing out how important these subsidies are for Georgians and how their costs will increase. And if you look at the news articles coming out of Georgia, one of them from one of their WJBF says, marketplace enrollment in Georgia has doubled since the enhanced credits took effect. The Georgia Recorder headline says, expiration of the ACA tax credit spells disaster for rural Georgia. And the fact that the ACA and these tax cuts pushed enrollment to new highs. 24 million people, more people signed up. And these are the things that we're worried about. And when they attack the ACA, I think about, and they attack these tax credits, I think about the women. You pointed out some of those impacts, but think about the women who are going to be negatively impacted when they allow these tax credits to expire and when those Medicaid cuts go into effect. Rep. Clark, can you talk about what that means for American women and families if the Republican policies go in effect?
Thank you for the question. And I'm sure that your experience has been very much like mine. We were talking about the Kaiser Family Foundation numbers. On average, the ACA premiums are going up over $1,000, $1,026 in a monthly payment. And you think about the mom that I met at a food bank just a few days ago, and she had really narrowed what she was eating to a few crackers a day because she wanted to make sure that her children, when she was unsure that that SNAP benefit was coming, and she's already working 2 jobs as a single mom to keep food on her table, to keep the lights on, to try and keep a shelter, and trying to hide all of this from her kids so they can go to school and learn and not be anxious. That is hard. That is sacrifice. And we talked today to veterans who said to me, fight on, fight on. To this morning in Arlington, Massachusetts. And we talked in our comments about veterans today about sacrifice and what it means to put it all on the line for your country. That is what we ask hardworking Americans to do all the time. Get up, work hard, and try and get ahead. And they are telling us this system doesn't work for us. I would join any one of my colleagues in working on overhauling our healthcare system. It wasn't working well for people before they took an axe to all of it and all of the supports. But when we're here on Veterans Day talking about sacrifice and courage, if we cannot find the courage to at least speak out, and as the leader said, when we're not going to find a dime in this budget to give people health relief, when we are not going to talk about restoring the almost $200 billion cut to SNAP that was made before they politicized it as a weapon, we certainly owe those who don the uniform of our country to be able to stand up and say, we have identified a wrong in this budget in creating a personal fund for 8 select senators, millions of dollars that could flow to them. And we can't stand up and demand that we do better, then it's time to think of something else to do, if that's the kind of decision. Because what's hard is to be a single mom in this country and trying to get that little bit of breathing room. And we can certainly look them in the eye and say, we are fighting for you. And we are not going to stand for blatant corruption in this CR.
Thank you for fighting for the women of America and for all the families of America, wherever they happen to live, Republican or Democratic districts. And with that, if there is nothing else, as the last Democrat on the panel, I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Leisure-Fernandez. Mr. Jack, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you to Leader Jeffries and Whip Clark for testifying before us today. I'm just curious, rewinding back to March of 2021, when these enhanced premium tax credits were created, could you walk us through, in this committee, through the thought process as to why they were set to expire at the end of this year?
Well, actually, we'll correct the gentleman's time frame because, as you probably recall, the original Affordable Care Act tax credits were part of the American Rescue Plan. That lapsed at the end of December in 2022. As part of the Inflation Reduction Act, which was enacted in 2022, that extended the Affordable Care Act tax credits for an additional 3 years, which is why the amendment that we're offering today would extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for 3 years under current policy baseline. That's been the Republican policy. In fact, you all just use current policy baseline to jam the one big ugly bill down the throats of the American people. Current policy baseline where you ripped Medicaid away from 14 million Americans. Current policy baseline where you enacted the largest cut to SNAP in American history. And most egregiously, current policy baseline as part of your one big ugly bill to provide massive tax breaks for your billionaire donors. And you made it permanent. And now, what we've seen over the last several weeks is the Republican refusal to even extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for working class Americans for a year. So that's why we're in the situation that we're in. And Republicans continue to refuse to take yes for an answer. We're trying to help you help your own folks, because the states that will be most impacted if the Affordable Care Act tax credits expire: West Virginia, Wyoming, Alaska, Mississippi, Tennessee, Texas, Alabama, South Carolina, North Dakota, and South Dakota. Those are the top 10 states impacted if the Affordable Care Act tax credits expire. So this is not a partisan issue for us as House Democrats. It's a patriotic issue because we're fighting to protect the health care of everyday Americans, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. You're a hardworking American taxpayer, and you can't afford to have your health insurance premiums skyrocket by thousands of dollars a year.
Thank you for that. And a question I have, you mentioned things should be bipartisan issues. I'm curious, this bill before us is a bipartisan bill. 8 Democrat senators crossed the aisle to send it over to the House. I'm curious, what's your message to those 8 Democrat senators who bravely crossed the aisle to send this bill to us?
Our message, our fight right now is that there are at least 25 different House Republicans, because we're in the House of Representatives right now, 25 House Republicans who in different ways have said, yeah, we need to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. And now is the opportunity for members of the House Republican Conference to actually mean what they say. And we're giving them this opportunity. If you make this amendment in order, let's debate it on the House floor. My friends on the other side of the aisle have been literally gone for 7+ weeks. We should have ample opportunity, and I appreciate, Madam Chair, you giving us the opportunity to testify here today. The distinguished gentle lady from the great state of North Carolina by way of Brooklyn, the Bronx.
Manhattan. Get them all in there.
We get them all in. But let's debate these issues. We've been saying it week after week after week. We'll find a bipartisan path forward. Let's reopen the government, but let's do it in a way that addresses decisively the Republican health care crisis.
Thank you. I'll yield to my colleague and friend, Mr. Roy, before I yield back to the chair.
I'll take my friend from Georgia. I know I had to step out and call my children a little bit ago, so I stepped out, I think my name was invoked a couple times, that's fine. We do that around here in response, and I made some statements. I just wanted to stipulate the record a couple things. One, I wanted to ask consent to enter the record the editorial board of the Washington Post for November 1st, 2025, titled "The Unaffordability of Obamacare Comes Home to Roost," subtitle "ACA Subsidies Are a Band-Aid for a Fundamentally Broken Healthcare System," in which they go through an outline. This is an editorial board that
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, that had commented that the Affordable Care Act has been anything but affordable. And in going through the analysis in this editorial, I won't go through the whole thing here for the sake of time, but it's making the case for how we got here and walking through the whole process in terms of the mandate and then in terms of sort of a backdoor into it through the subsidies with the 400% POP, which we've already talked about earlier. We then went from the 15% rate, which is historic for private plans and was true for Obamacare, and now we're at a 35 to 40% rate in terms of these plans that were not being used, yet massively subsidized. So as the editorial points out, the late economist Milton Friedman has said nothing is as permanent as a temporary government program. And that's what I think needs to be stipulated here, is that this was put forward as a temporary program during COVID, and it is being asked to be extended to do the work of trying to basically put a Band-Aid on it, to use the Washington Post terms, as they say, quote, "The solution offered by Democratic leaders is to keep shoveling more taxpayer money into a pit of ever larger subsidies, even though the national debt is $38 trillion and growing." That is the Washington Post editorial board. And I would just close by saying we have significant solutions to health care that we have been putting forward and proposing, from any number of possibilities involving expansion of health savings accounts, direct primary care. We had provisions of direct primary care that we put in the big, beautiful bill, which I believe will have serious benefits, being able to use insurance for direct primary care. I've got direct primary care doctors throughout my district, which are helping people, helping musicians, helping people that can't get access to doctors through their insurance companies, the ability to be able to have greater transparency and be able to go to places like the Surgery Center of Oklahoma, where you can get a $14,000 knee replacement instead of $65,000 through the insurance plans, being able to have expansive use of things like MediShare and health sharing ministries that allow people to defray costs. We've got lots of people coming up with creative solutions to be able to afford health care, because right now they're denied the ability to afford health care because we broke the system after World War II, wage controls, and then we had this employer-foisted product that is now making it impossible for people to afford care. And what we ought to do is eliminate that tax disparity. We ought to make it to where you have same tax treatment, whether you're getting it from your employer or whether you have it yourself. If your employer wants to give it to you, you should go to a health savings account. You should be able to go to the market and shop. And you ought to have varied solutions, including short-term limited duration plans, which we should bring back, and other ways in order to get costs down so you have more competition. There are lots of ways we can address this if we'll sit and debate it. But what we shouldn't be doing is demanding that in order to proceed, as we've gone forward with short-term CRs and now 3 appropriations bills to keep government going and moving forward, we should debate those in a full open debate on health care. Happy to do that anytime. But I don't think it needs to be done in the context of offering an amendment here to do, as I said, the Washington Post said, the solution is to keep shoveling more taxpayer money into a pit of ever larger subsidies, even though the national debt is $38 trillion, and which, by the way, will continue to drive the cost of health care up. I yield back to the gentleman from Georgia.
And I yield back to the chairwoman.
Thank you very much. I'm going to follow on with that, but I do want to set the record straight just a bit. Wikipedia is wrong. I was born in Manhattan.
All right.
I was baptized at Mount Carmel Church. My grandparents moved to the Bronx, and I spent some time with them. So my mother, though, was living in Brooklyn when she met my father there. So I do have most of the boroughs covered.
That's a beautiful thing. But you strike me as someone from the boogie down Bronx.
I took the train at Pelham Bay, walked through the park in the days when you could walk through the Pelham Bay Park and get on the subway. Anyway, I want to follow on with what my colleague from Texas was talking about from the Washington Post. The Affordable Care Act is really a misnomer. It's never been affordable, as the Washington Post said. It's just never. And let's be clear, the ACA subsidies will still be present in the individual market next year, despite all the things you all have been saying. The enhanced premium subsidies, which go directly to insurance companies and were justified as COVID relief when they were authorized, are expiring because Democrats insisted on a take it or leave it, no reforms approach. COVID is over. Democrats themselves were responsible for sunsetting these provisions, are responsible for setting up the sunsetting of these provisions at the end of December 2025. Republicans had nothing to do. We never voted for the Affordable Care Act. Yes, we voted to repeal it 70 times. We always had an alternative to it. We've heard over and over tonight that there were no alternatives. That is not true. Much of what has been said tonight is not true. We'll deal some more with that tomorrow. But we should not be rewarding our colleagues for taking the entire government hostage by rubber stamping a COVID-related program. COVID is over. Our Democrat colleagues would have the public believe that the only way to stabilize the individual insurance market is to flood.
Okay, we were able to sit there and listen for a little bit. I'm going to turn this down. We were able to listen there. We got a little bit of audio, I think, playing in the background right now, so excuse that in the moment. But we wanted to play that out because you're getting a firsthand look there at that conversation that took place prior to the vote by the House Rules Committee last night into the different sides, Republicans and Democrats, and what could happen in this debate over health care, particularly when it comes to this bill that could happen later tonight to fund the government. Now, we know that healthcare subsidies are not a part of what's going to be voted on with this new deal that first was reached by the Senate and the House expected to have a vote later on today. However, it gives us a little bit of insight there. If you can hear the House Minority Leader Jeffries and others within that room, look at the differences between both sides as they push towards a guaranteed vote on healthcare within the next month or so. So found that pretty fascinating. But right now, we do want to pivot to something that's happening right now. We have U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, who is holding a press conference announcing an investigation into cryptocurrency fraudsters. All right. This is happening right now. We're told that they were able to target a group to the tune of $10 billion a year in which they've been responsible for. So let's go ahead and tune into that happening at the moment.
Americans in particular are targets of these scams, many of them lonely, many of them looking to speak to someone who communicates with them. Their entire life savings gone, their retirement funds gone, left with no opportunity to go back into the workforce and to re-earn money. I want to give you two examples. One is a woman who said she sent $40,000 initially, and she was provided with screenshots that showed the profits of her cryptocurrency investment. Quote from the victim: "That was telling me I was making all this profit. That's what encouraged me to invest more." And in the end, the woman, who was 60 years old, lost $1 million of her life savings. Another person said, I've been financially assaulted, and it's a devastating feeling. A Virginia man who lost $272,000. And this is the saddest of all. Quote, "There wasn't enough money left even to pay for his headstone." The daughter of the victim of cryptocurrency fraud who killed himself. So this scamdemic is certainly a generational wealth transfer from Main Street USA into the hands of Chinese organized crime, making it both a national security problem and a homeland security problem. And with the partners behind us, my office will not stand by as these Chinese organized crimes enterprises empty out the bank accounts of hardworking Americans, many, of course, left without the ability to go back into the workforce. And that is why we are here today. With our partners at the Maine Department of Justice, the FBI, the United States Secret Service, a Scam Center Strike Force is being created. As the prosecuting office in the nation's capital, we have the authority to charge foreign defendants and seize foreign property well situated to engage also with our partner agencies across the government. This new strike force mission is to identify and charge the leaders of these cryptocurrency scam organizations, to trace and to seize the stolen funds to the victims, and seize and disable the United States infrastructure that is the manner and the means of the scam itself. So already we've been hard at work. We've already seized over $400 million, and today we are filing additional actions to forfeit $80 million that we will return to victims. We have seized websites being used by these compounds in Southeast Asia that are used to victimize Americans. We're seeking warrants to seize satellite terminals and accounts being used by the perpetrators to connect to the internet. And our Strike Force Burma team has identified, quote, the Democratic Karen Force Burma Team, Benevolent Army. Let me say it again. The Democratic Karen Benevolent Army, which is a Burmese army group which is supporting scam centers, which we have nominated for designation by the Treasury Department. We're calling on all U.S. providers to assist us because left unchecked, this will continue to grow. And it will grow on the networks that we talked about, resulting in U.S. believers, U.S. users believing they can no longer trust these platforms as safe. We want to work with United States partners in a public-private partnership to ensure that these corrupt scammers will immediately be cut off, thus preventing the United States infrastructure from being used as a means to perpetrate fraud against Americans. My final message on this issue is as follows. The Department of Justice will not stand by while Chinese organized crime victimizes Americans and bleeds dry the hard-earned investments of American citizens. The Scam Center Strike Force brings together a cadre of resources across agency. Our best and brightest are being brought together to attack this problem by securing our United States infrastructure, by returning money to victims, and by bringing these perpetrators to justice. Now, I'd like to call upon two of the people behind me right now, Gregory Heeb from the FBI Criminal Division, Deputy Assistant Director.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. I'm Gregory Heeb with the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division. I'd like to thank United States Attorney Pirro and the men and women serving in your office, ma'am, for leading efforts within the United States government to bring agencies, experts, and other resources together to fight the growing threat that scam centers pose to the American people. I'm proud to be here today standing beside our partners to demonstrate the FBI's commitment to the important work of the Scam Center Strike Force. Our partnership with the United States Attorney's Office in the District of Columbia and with the agencies represented here today is critical. It's a critical component of the FBI's strategy to counter complex fraud schemes no matter where they originate. The FBI has dedicated resources from headquarters here in Washington, D.C., from the Washington field office, and from field offices around the country, including New York, New Haven, Boston, San Diego, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Nashville, to advance the work of this Scam Center Strike Force. In addition, the FBI relies on teams of FBI professionals serving in legal attaché offices across the world, in Southeast Asia as well, to advance the work of the Strike Force, and we do so in close coordination with our foreign law enforcement partners. The lasting impact from highly sophisticated transnational financial crimes emanating from these scam centers can be devastating to victims and their families, as United States Attorney Pirro mentioned. There are countless stories of Americans who have worked their whole lives only to fall victim to one of these schemes and lose everything. Everyone is a target, and anyone can fall victim. These fraud schemes are on the rise. The FBI's Internet Crimes Complaint Center reported losses exceeding $6.5 billion in 2024, and that's just from crypto investment fraud schemes alone. That's a 43% increase in losses from the year before. This year, reported losses are on track to increase, once again surpassing those numbers in 2024. Keep in mind, as the judge mentioned, this number only captures losses that are actually reported to law enforcement. Actual losses are much, much higher. The FBI is committed to working alongside our partners to protect the American people and to pursue the criminal networks operating these scams. It is our job, together with our partners here today, to stop these criminals, and we are going to do just that. Thank you very much. And I'd like to turn it over to my colleagues in the Secret Service.
Good morning. I'm Keogh Dolan, the Assistant Director for the U.S. Secret Service's Office of Field Operations. I'm pleased to join my colleagues today from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Department of Justice, the FBI, and the U.S. Treasury and State Departments. Since 2019, the Secret Service has seen a major uptick in cryptocurrency investment scams. The organizations behind these scams leverage an ecosystem of criminality, often weaving an intricate web of illicit activities together to perpetrate their schemes. These schemes include human trafficking, victim engineering, and money laundering, among other crimes. The U.S. Secret Service, along with our partners, have worked diligently to investigate these scams and return stolen funds to victims. During the 2025 fiscal year alone, the U.S. Secret Service has responded to approximately 3,000 victims who contacted us regarding cryptocurrency investment schemes, and we seized or froze approximately $495 million in stolen cryptocurrency. These stolen funds were primarily obtained from cryptocurrency investment scams linked to scam centers located in Southeast Asia. With the newly established Scam Center Strike Force, we can do even more to assist our victims in these scams. Each Strike Force member agency brings unique expertise and capabilities that, when combined in a strategic and coordinated manner, will greatly impact our ability to combat these scams and dismantle the criminal organizations behind them. The U.S. Secret Service will leverage our cryptocurrency tracing expertise, as well as our network of skilled forensic accountants, to trace stolen funds and identify impacted victims. Additionally, our overseas field offices have been working alongside law enforcement partners in the region for years to combat these crimes, and we will continue to leverage these relationships during our work on the Strike Force. As U.S. Attorney Pirro mentioned, we have already seen the results from Strike Force efforts. Included in the seizures announced today is a $66 million cryptocurrency investment scam-related seizure, which involved hundreds of victims that were targeted on a dating app. This investigation, led by the U.S. Secret Service's Global Investigative Operations Center, identified approximately 500 websites linked to the organization where victims were enticed with false investment opportunities. The second case I'd like to highlight that was included also in today's announcement is a $1.5 million cryptocurrency scam-related seizure by our Memphis field office. Of course, done in coordination with our FBI partners, thank you. We identified nearly 100 U.S. victims. And after this seizure, an additional 120 victims came forward or were identified, further underscoring the importance of victim reporting. I would like to emphasize to those that are listening today that your voice matters. These cases started with victim reporting, and this fight will continue with your help. If you believe that you are a victim in any of these cases, please contact your local Secret Service field office or email cryptofraud@usss.dhs.gov. Again, cryptofraud@usss.dhs.gov, or you can file a complaint with the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, IC3. It truly takes all of us to combat these scams. So in closing, I'd like to thank U.S. Attorney Pirro and her team for your steadfast support. I'd also like to thank our Strike Force agency partners for their continued collaboration. We certainly look forward to working together with all of you to combat this scamdemic. And finally, I certainly want to recognize the dedicated efforts of the U.S. Secret Service team, especially our cadre of skilled analytic professionals and forensic accountants. This group, led by Callie, our program manager and cryptocurrency expert, with support from our special agent colleagues, have made such an impact in combating these scams. Of course, even our foreign and domestic field offices. They continue to dedicate countless hours to combat this scamdemic. So all of you have and continue to make a difference. Thank you for caring enough to do so. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time today and turn it back over to U.S. Attorney Pirro.
Thank you. Thank you. And now, key to our success is the collaboration with the agency partners. And I'd like to turn the podium over now to the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC Director Bradley T. Smith from the Treasury Department.
Good morning, and thank you, Judge Pirro. We at Treasury are thrilled to be here today and to support the exciting strike force that was announced this morning. As part of that whole-of-government effort, working with our colleagues at the Department of Justice as well as the Secret Service, we are pleased today to announce that we are sanctioning the entity identified by Judge Pirro earlier today, the Democratic Karen Benevolent Army, or DKBA, and 4 of its leaders for supporting cyber scam centers in Burma that target Americans using fraudulent investment schemes. The DKBA is a violent group that provides, quote unquote, security at the Tai Chang compound in Burma. That compound houses cyber scam operations that have targeted and stolen money from Americans. Perhaps even worse, the DKBA actively participates in violence against the human trafficking victims trapped in the compound and forced to work in its scam centers against their will. As part of our broader effort to disrupt this network, we are also sanctioning today 2 companies and a Thai national who are linked to Chinese organized crime and have worked with DKBA and other armed groups to develop scam centers. It is now illegal for those sanctioned to move money, buy goods, or purchase services in the United States, and as a practical matter, to engage in any significant financial transaction around the world. As others have mentioned, this cyber scam threat is serious. Last year, by our estimates, and estimates vary, but we estimate that approximately $10 billion was lost to Southeast Asia-based scam operations, a 66% increase over the prior year. In some cases, as Judge Pirro indicated, victims here in the United States have lost their entire savings to these schemes. Now, today's action actually builds on an effort that Treasury has undertaken since the start of President Trump's second term. Indeed, this is our 5th action this year targeting scam centers, totaling over 165 different designations, including one in May and another in September, targeting actors in Burma. Using the task force announced today by Judge Pirro, we are committed to continuing this work, to taking the initiative and working with our law enforcement partners and our colleagues around the government, including at the Department of State, to disrupt these scam operations and to ensure that we protect U.S. citizens and the U.S. financial system. And with that, I'd like to turn over to my colleagues from the State Department to touch on their work.
Thank you, U.S. Attorney Pirro, also all my agency colleagues. So good morning, I'm Chris Lamberg. I'm the head of the International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Bureau at the State Department. Since day one of the Trump administration, the Department of State has been working in lockstep with the Departments of Justice and Treasury and Homeland Security to prioritize protecting American citizens, including from threats of online scams. I'm proud to stand here today with U.S. Attorney Pirro, colleagues from DOJ and Treasury and FBI, the United States Secret Service, and all the hardworking members of the Department of Justice's Scam Center Strike Force. Chinese transnational criminal organizations in Southeast Asia have increasingly and purposefully targeted U.S. citizens, defrauding them, as Judge Pirro said, of more than $9 billion just last year alone, and posing every day a direct threat to U.S. national security and to our fellow citizens. Many of these criminal organizations rely on forced criminality, as it has been said by some of my colleagues, a form of human trafficking to facilitate scams, threatening victims with extreme quotas and using violence when these quotas are not met. We estimate that more than 400,000 people from more than 70 countries are forced to work in these scam compounds, primarily in Burma, Cambodia, and Laos. With the crime extending increasingly to the Western Hemisphere and Sub-Saharan Africa. Those numbers have likely grown significantly as criminal operations relocate in response to Beijing's crackdown in some places in Burma and Thailand. Recently publicized steps by senior Cambodian government officials demonstrate their concern, but are followed by little measurable progress toward disrupting a criminal industry that generates billions of dollars a year, equivalent to roughly 40% of Cambodia's GDP, for example. The Department of State is stepping up our efforts to stop these scams. We are dedicating more than $25 million of security assistance to support the DOJ strike force to combat this threat. We will also support the DOJ strike force using visa restrictions against corrupt foreign officials who enable scams, and through the Transnational Organized Crime Rewards Program, which enables the Secretary of State to offer rewards up to $25 million for information leading to the arrest and/or conviction of high-level transnational criminals involved in scamming U.S. citizens. The rewards program can also offer rewards for information leading to the seizure and forfeiture of scam proceeds, similar to DOJ's financial disruption to the scam industry through its recent seizure of a huge seizure of cryptocurrency related to the Prince Group Holdings investigation. The Department of State is coordinating with the Department of Treasury as well to impose financial sanctions on individuals and entities involved in defrauding U.S. citizens through cyber scams. The State Department is working to eliminate the forced labor driving these centers through ongoing programs to raise awareness of fraudulent job recruitment, identifying potential trafficking victims, and bolstering government's abilities to prosecute human trafficking through digital evidence. The Department of State, together with our U.S. law enforcement partners and global partners, is protecting Americans, dismantling scam operations, holding those responsible accountable, and pressing all countries to demonstrate the necessary political will to uproot these scam networks. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that it's pretty obvious that we are committed to this new strike force from across all different agencies in the government. I think the biggest problem is that so many people have heard about crypto and they want to get involved and they don't understand it. And if they can see a legitimate profit on a legitimate website, they're all in. And that's what we're trying to prevent, especially when we've got these scam centers in Southeast Asia, and they are part of even bigger operations that are intended to target the United States to move money from Main Street USA to other countries. And that's why we're all here today. And I'm very proud of this operation. And I want to recognize one person here on my left and your right, Karen Siebert, who is with my office and is one of the people who is at the center of the brains of this operation. So I want to recognize Karen for the work that she's done. She was actually on maternity leave, and I think she did more work during maternity leave than on normal days. But even your normal days are long days. So congratulations to Karen. Now, also, I just want to say that there are partners that are interested in working with us. When I talked about Facebook and some of the other social media platforms, there are people who are reaching out to us saying, we want to be a part of this public-private partnership. So we're very excited about that. So I think it will be even bigger and will give, hopefully, Americans some recourse when they end up being scammed in these very targeted scams. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Strike force of this kind in the country of any U.S. Attorney's office?
Is it? I'm pretty sure, yeah, to our knowledge, we think it is. And I think the benefit here, as I've already indicated, is because of the jurisdiction that I have here, we have here in Washington, we have jurisdiction over these cases from foreign countries. It is a first.
What is your advice to elderly Americans? These people can be pretty persistent. I know people are receiving these texts all the time. What is your advice about how to deal with this and not get scammed out of your life savings?
Well, I think the most important thing that we can tell someone who becomes victimized by this is, don't be disappointed in yourself. Don't be upset with yourself that you fell to this kind of scam, because these people are experts. In some cases, their livelihood depends upon how much money they bring in to the scam center. So I think that's the most important thing. But the second most important thing is that if it sounds too good to be true, it is. If you don't understand cryptocurrency at this stage of your life, chances are you're not going to understand it. Don't invest unless you're dealing with an American company, with someone who is a recognized, established company in the United States. See, there's a certain mystery about all this that everybody hears about people making millions in crypto. It's a fraud, and it's one of the biggest frauds that we're seeing. It was identity theft several years back. Now, cryptocurrency theft is the biggest theft that we're seeing in this country.
You released a statement on the record recently that Mayor Bowser is not under investigation or the target of investigation. Can you say that trip in question, nothing about it's under investigation, no one involved in it?
I maintain the statement that I made. She is not under investigation, and she is not being investigated. I think we ought to just end it there.
Was she ever under investigation?
No, she was not. You're welcome. Okay, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And thank you to everyone behind me. I'm very, very excited about this. And just so you know, Meta.
Okay, you were just listening there, a conversation taking place of new efforts to track and stop cryptocurrency scams that are taking place, in which they say is the growing most way in which people are getting scammed across the country. $10 billion a year, this particular group in which they are targeting. Their U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, they're holding that press conference about their new scam center strike force that's going to be looking into this. Again, it's such a huge industry, so many people falling victim. You heard her say, if you have fallen prey to these scams, know that you are not alone, that there are resources out there that help. Make sure that whatever you are using is reputable whenever someone is trying to get your money in any form of capacity. But right now, within the last few minutes of our stream here, we want to turn to big news out of Virginia this morning, particularly here in Hampton Roads. Former Congresswoman Elaine Luria, a Democrat, is running for her old seat in Virginia's 2nd District, an attempt to unseat the Republican incumbent, Jen Kiggins. Earlier today, Luria made that announcement that she will be running again. Of course, she was a two-term Democrat in that particular district from 2019 to 2023, lost in the election in 2022 to Kiggins, who has held that seat ever since. And so she made that announcement again earlier today, a Navy veteran of more than 20 years, saying that she also wants to work to go against what she's calling chaos created by Republicans in D.C. She wants to address the rising cost of living and also to cut health care costs and strengthen the military. Those are things in which she says she wants the opportunity to run on. That's major news in that race because there's already a handful of people who have put their names in to try to unseat Kiggins, who is running again. They want to challenge her as the Republican there. One of those individuals has already taken his name out of the running since we've gotten the announcement from Luria. That is Mike Williamson, a Democrat who also is a veteran. He says that he is now endorsing Luria for that seat. Okay, and we spoke with someone earlier today on Daybreak who is running. This is Matt Strickler. He is running for that seat as well, and he has plenty of experience within not only the state, but also the national level, having worked under the Biden administration and under former Virginia Governor Ralph Northam. So we're going to play the interview from that this morning. 2026 midterm elections. Next year, all seats in the House will be up for election nationwide. And this morning, we're speaking with Matt Strickler, who has announced his campaign for Virginia's 2nd congressional district. He's a lifelong Virginian, has served in a variety of roles, including at NOAA, the Department of the Interior, and as a legislative aide to then State Senator Ralph Northam, and then also some other roles, just to name a few. So thank you for joining us here this morning. Off the bat, Matt, why are you running? What has drawn you to the spot to put your name into the race?
Yeah, well, Eugene, it's good to be here this morning. Thank you for having me bright and early here on 13 News. For me, as you mentioned, I'm a lifelong Virginian, somebody who has had a career in public service. I grew up out in the western part of the state in Rockbridge County and Lexington area, but my family is from Virginia Beach. I spent all my summers down here in this area and over on the Eastern Shore where my grandparents lived and which is the place where my wife and I now call home. So deep roots in Hampton Roads and on the shore, and have a pretty significant background in service to the Commonwealth and to the United States. As you mentioned, spent time working in the General Assembly for then State Senator Ralph Northam, and then also worked for him as part of his cabinet as the Secretary of Natural Resources and Historic Resources and the Chief Resilience Officer, where we were able to accomplish a lot of good for the people of Virginia. We had record investments in Chesapeake Bay restoration. We put in place our first coastal resilience master plan and created the flood protection fund that is helping do things like elevate Battlefield Boulevard down in Chesapeake, install stormwater pumps in Virginia Beach, and do living shorelines and other resilience projects in Norfolk. And elsewhere. So, have a lot of experience in government, certainly am of and care about the Commonwealth a lot. I'm running because I'm really frustrated by what we're seeing out of Washington, D.C. right now. I don't think that we have people in the White House and in Congress who are representing the best interests of the people of the 2nd District, and I think that really needs to change.
What would be your priorities if elected?
Yeah, I think the first thing we need to do is stop the chaos. For me, looking at things like these arbitrary tariffs that are really hurting our trade relationships, hurting our relationships with our allies around the globe, driving up costs for families in Hampton Roads and around the country. Dealing with affordability, dealing with fairness in our economy, I think is really important. Everything from healthcare to food to housing, sending your kids to college. It's just getting more and more expensive, and at the same time, you see what the bill that passed over the summer, which gives $1 trillion in tax breaks to billionaires. At the same time, we're taking away health care and food benefits for working families.
Speaking of voting today, a big vote expected within the House when it comes to this appropriation spending bill to end this government shutdown. Health care was a big part of the stalemate there. How would you vote?
Yeah, so let me just tell you a little bit about how I see this. I mean, first of all, this whole episode makes me cringe as an American, and I think is really unfortunate for our country. You know, the Republican Party controls the White House, it controls the House of Representatives, it controls the Senate. It is up to them to put a bill on the table that can get the votes to pass, and they have failed all year to do that. They have continued to fail for 40 days during the longest government shutdown in our country's history. I think it's wrong. I think we're in a situation where, you know, you're seeing again people looking down the barrel of having their health care benefits taken away, food benefits, people not getting paychecks, and essential government services taken away, and that's just wrong, and it's unnecessary. You know, at the same time, the bill that has been put on the table and the deal that you know, Senate Democrats took isn't good enough. You know, we are in a situation where, you know, people are really struggling out there, and I think they want folks who are going to stand up and fight and be leaders, and you know, and really speak truth to power, no matter who is in the White House. And you know, that's something that I am committed to do, and that a big part of the reason why I'm running.
So just from hearing from you, just real quick, yes or no, would you say yes to what you know about the bill or no?
Yeah, I'm a no vote on this bill. I think in normal times, you know, I'm somebody who doesn't love the idea of shutting down the government, but anybody who says these are normal times is kidding themselves.
Okay, and so with your experience, you talked about being under Northam both as a state senator and also when he was a governor. You worked under the Biden administration. But obviously, when you're elected by the people here, it's about the issues here, too. How would you balance being in D.C. and then also making sure we're getting the issues addressed here within our local community?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and honestly, probably the most important question. I think, you know, from my perspective, as somebody who has always been, you know, a little bit behind the scenes and trying to help decision makers make smart decisions based on, you know, sound evidence and science. You know, I think listening is the most important skill for any representative, and that's what I'm committed to do. I think politicians talk too much, don't listen quite enough, and I'm really committed to spending a lot of time getting around the 2nd District, meeting people where they are in their communities, hearing their concerns and the things that are important to them. And then, you know, take what I've learned from those conversations to Washington, and again, try to make sound policy based on that.
All right, well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck to you within that race. You're one of a handful of people who are vying for this seat. It's already a packed ticket for next year. According to the Federal Elections Commission, 7 people are running for the Democratic nomination, including Strickler. Republican Jen Kiggins, who currently holds the seat for District 2, is planning for re-election. And join us over on 13 News Now Plus at 1:30 for live Impact News, where we'll have Congresswoman Jen Kiggins expected to join us as the House prepares to vote on that bill to reopen the government. Okay, Craig, I'll send it over to you. How's it looking for that forecast?
So today looks great, guys.
Well, that was something that we recorded earlier today on Daybreak when we had Strickler in our studios talking about his campaign, and that was just about an hour before Elaine Luria made it official that she is going to run for her seat that, again, she lost in 2022 to Jen Kiggins, who, by the way, you heard us tease that she will be on this platform on 13 News Now Plus. The time should be now around 2:15 as opposed to 1:30. We're expecting to hear from her. Representative Jen Kiggins, the Republican currently in office for the Virginia 2nd District. She should have a big part, a big role today, as we heard from House Speaker Mike Johnson earlier today say that he believes that this government shutdown could potentially end tonight with that vote taking place. Kiggins will be in that space to cast her vote on whether or not to reopen the government, and we expect that she will vote in favor of the bill to do so. Again, an interview with her we're expecting to get around 2:15 this afternoon right here on Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. You can tune in to hear that. So a lot of news is happening as we speak right now, and we will see how things turn out if this 43rd day of the government shutdown will be the last day of this historic run. So continue to follow us here on 13 News Now Plus and on all of our platforms here on 13 News Now. But that will do it for us here for Live Impact News. Next, we'll have 13 News Now at noon. You'll hear Ashley Smith, and she'll give some updates to the news of the day that have taken place. Again, Naya, our producer, Naya Campbell, who's right here, will be back with Anchor Connor Real from 2 until 4 p.m. right here on this platform. If you are watching us on YouTube, thank you so much to do so. But go ahead and download 13 News Now Plus. You can catch us at any time, anywhere. We'll catch you tomorrow.